What's going on, guys? How we doing? I'm actually really glad kind of how these review shows have been structured because week one I was very successful and I got to show you like a pretty consistent success week, right? Like all my lines pretty much hit. Week two, I pretty much showed you all my lines not hitting, some bad process decisions, some just like, oh, that game, that week was like you had to have a few good stacks, like the Lamar Dolphins week. Like you had to be on the big explosion week. This week was like the polar opposite go, but it was kind of a really fun like dichotomy of process. We saw a record low, I believe 120 points was like the baseline in most general or like baseline $1 to $10 double ups and head to head and that kind of thing. So 120 is extremely low. So I thought it was very interesting because coming off week two, we saw extremely high, and this week we saw the exact opposite in terms of variance. But I think there's lessons to be learned. What was your initial instant reaction off of week three?
Let's see. It was sort of weird because the games I was it was the pivot week or it was the zag week for
Mm-hmm.
most teams
Mm-hmm.
because the games that we were targeting were really the games to have. Like we wanted that Miami Buffalo game, we wanted the Detroit Minnesota game, we wanted the Philly game, and those were the teams that had the points that had really good games. In the afternoon, we wanted Atlanta, Seattle. We wanted Rams, Arizona. Those games were good. They were the games to target, but it wasn't in the ways we thought. Like the guys who got all the scoring for the Buffalo Miami game were the running backs. No one was playing Singletary and Chase Edmonds. They were playing Josh Allen and Tua stacks.
Correct.
Like no one in the Arizona game, no one was playing Marquise Brown. They were playing Stafford stacks with Cup, and Cup didn't get there. So
Yeah.
and then of course the Atlanta game does go well, but it's not to Kyle Pitts. It's like it's finally a Cordero Patterson game, and then Metcalf and Lockett are solid. So it was sort of a week where like what you would have thought would have been like the top 30 to 40% options
Mm-hmm.
didn't hit. It was the back end guys for a lot of those made big teams this week. It wasn't AJ Brown with Hurts. It was Devonta. Like it
Right.
was a lot of that kind of stuff. It wasn't chalky Miles Sanders and just Hurts to AJ Brown. It was Devonta Smith racking up stuff. It wasn't real. Like Lamar was probably the one outlier because no one was really on that game. But Lamar is a fantasy juggernaut, and I'm not afraid of New England's defense anymore. But as I saw with Mac Jones in that game, I'm also not afraid of Baltimore's defense.
Well,
So all in all, I actually was okay. I was profitable on the week. Nothing big, but
mhm.
the games I was on, like Philadelphia, and really the other big one was letdown was the Kansas City games. Mahomes didn't really get there, but guys were close. Like Cup dropped a touchdown, and then the Stafford stacks get there. Kelsey drops a couple red zone targets, or else him and Mahomes and those stacks get there. So
Well,
it was just a real down week. And like you said, like it was a real low scoring week. No one really converted that much.
Well, I'm glad you used the word converted because, like, look at a guy like Leonard Fournette. We saw that game caught on the wire, and the Tampa Bay Bucks were on the goal line, and they were about to run a play. They had snapped it even, but Brady had gotten the ball off late. They called delay of game. That was an inside handoff where Leonard Fournette looked like he was going to walk into the end zone. He scores 12 fantasy points in that game off some catches late. If he walks in for the touchdown, that swings not only me, but I'm sure a lot of people. I mean, And when you talk about a low week, I mean, those are the kind of variant swings that we're talking about. But we talked about it in our like ramp up to prepare people, as we got a lot of new viewers who may not be experienced in DraftKings. This is a seasonal game within a season. Like, it's daily fantasy sports. We all know this, but you should also vary the contest you're playing, the type of contest, and the exposure in which you were playing. Like, this week, I wasn't as comfortable as I normally am with my quarterback selection, so I played an extra quarterback this week. Some weeks I might play less quarterbacks because I'm not as comfortable with the quarterback selection. So what I'm saying though is, like, sometimes you gotta know where the edges are, and but at the same time you gotta know the edge is just sharp. And sometimes it's sharp to cut something open, and sometimes it's sharp to stay away. And you gotta know the difference between the two. And then also just knowing the difference between luck and unlucky. Like, for example, most of my lineups look like this with a couple different variances of quarterbacks. Like, this lineup I played Mariota, one lineup I played Trevor Lawrence. The other lineup I played Jared Goff. Now, Trevor Lawrence didn't get there because the Chargers didn't keep up. Everyone probably would have assumed the Chargers would win that game. They're the ones that got boat race, which forced Lawrence not to have to throw as much. Where Mariota won the game in a probably a ugly kind of shootout type game. I would guess that no one would expect that kind of high, passing attempts for those two kind of middling quarterbacks of Gino and Mariota. But it still wasn't enough because I didn't correlate it enough, or not enough things happened. And so that's where you should vary your exposure to different games, whether it be cash games, whether it be tournaments, and even the prop market. Because I made a ton of money on Thursday, so then I could take more chances on Friday. I actually had the David Njoku single injury Thursday lineup, but that changes my mindset on how I build a lineup for Sunday. And so, like, it's okay to admit that your bankroll and your decisions leading up to that bankroll are going to change. Like, I knew I was playing with house money this week, so I could vary my exposure. So I played 4 quarterbacks where normally I would play 3, and that maybe I cash more if I don't win because I play different. But we have to embrace the good and the bad. So eating crow isn't always that bad. Just put the salt and pepper on the crow and make it taste good. That's really the secret.
Oh, I agree with that.
So why don't we do this though? Because I got a surprise for us in the middle of the show, but for now, let's just do this. Let's just assume I'm going to pick a random lineup here, just a random lineup, and I want to almost try something different here.
I was about to say, go to lineup like 378 and just see what it is. That was a random number that came to my head.
378. Gotcha.
Oh, there's a tie at 377. Ho, 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 ho. So there is no 378. My mind is crazy. So 379, Mackey. What does he got?
I like Mackey because Mac Hollins. So there was just a poll there, a tie-in, if you will, because there was a tie. So why don't we break this down with, was this a good decision or not? So let's take a quick look. This way you will get almost an instant reaction.
Okay, so let's see. Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
He stacked him with A.J. Brown.
That's good.
Not a problem there. He brought it back with Curtis Samuel. So he's got the skinny stack with the bring back instead of the double stack. I'm fine with that. Those are perfectly fine.
Do you like that he brought it back with the safe commander option? Because I think most smart people knew that a cheap Washington productive option would have been the guy. So it would have been I got Romeo Dubs in my head, but it would have been
Dotson.
Dotson or Samuel, right? Like no one's bringing back Terry in that scenario.
Exactly. Terry would be the contrarian one to try to get in
Sure.
there. To have both like AJ Brown and Terry. So you have the two most expensive guys that you could have as the stack bring back to go with Hurts. That would be pretty contrarian. But no, I think you're good there because you're only doing the skinny. So you kind of just want what's the best skinny stack.
Right.
Well, that's Samuel for the volume. That's AJ Brown, the top receiver. That's Hurts.
Correct.
So like just going off of that, that's a pretty solid skinny stack start. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's break down the rest of the lineup.
He played the Texans defense.
The Texans defense was a middle of the pack defense. It wasn't the Panthers at 2,600. It was about the same. He actually has that correlated. He has the running back defense correlation. Yeah. So he was expecting Houston to sort of be up in that game and be able to sit on the ball and run with Pierce while also getting all the turnovers that you would get from a team that is behind in Chicago. That is not a bad thing. I'm not big on that because Chicago doesn't have a high enough pace. They run the ball too much. It's harder to get fumbles than it is to get interceptions. So it's not one of the ones I would have, but it is a good correlation play. If you were playing Pierce as a cheap running back, I could see you using the Houston defense.
It is good. I don't think enough people talk about that in terms of defense. And we talk about small edges, but week to week, 5 points can swing it. We talked about the Leonard Fournette touchdown Gov earlier. That would have swung it. The points on defense do matter. So why don't you talk about why you kind of almost want to target a game that might even get a bit wild because you might get more interceptions and fumbles. I think a lot of people still have that old traditional mindset where if I'm going to play a defense, I got to play this traditional slow-paced game, and that's kind of the opposite of fantasy, at least in my opinion.
Well, I mean, normally in defense, the way you get your points is a lot of people are going to look for touchdowns, but touchdowns are so variant that it's just not the right way to go. You want to try to see what kind of sustained volume can give a defense points that is consistent week to week. And that is getting pressure on quarterbacks so that they can get sacks, which causes interceptions. But for those interceptions, you need a team that's going to throw. So you need a throwing game script for a team, or a team that has a high throw percentage. So any team that I know that is going to throw the ball a lot, I will have a share of the defense against them. So currently right now is teams like the Jets and the Bengals. They are going to throw. Joe Burrow likes to throw. They throw more than 50% of the time. The Jets are throwing absurdly more than 50% of the time. So teams playing the defenses against those two teams are automatically in the passing game script. If they have any shot of getting pressure on those teams, then we have room for success and sustain in the defense. Then if they luck box a touchdown, I get the top defense on the slate probably.
I even like taking a defense against a popular quarterback that I know is going to throw a lot. For example, Josh Allen threw 64 times. He might score a bunch on my defense, but more than likely that defense is going to be cheaper based on Allen's rapport, right? Josh will force him down. If he's going to throw 64 times, there's a chance that some of those are going to be pick sixes or at least interceptions or, they're dropbacks. So when you get dropbacks, you might get a fumble.
That's the same. That's my same thought with a Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is a pretty elite quarterback, but he's going to throw a lot. So I don't see anything where he's going to be one of these rare occasions like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson have been in years where they just are so efficient and safe with the ball. It's crazy.
It's almost like that old fantasy football analogy. Do you want your handcuff or do you want your opponent's best handcuff when you go to look for handcuffs or late round running backs? And it's kind of that way with Fields in this lineup. It's like Fields has been so handcuffed by his own offense and his coordinator's inability to be conservative, similar to what Bill Belichick usually does with the Patriots in a more mainstream way. So if you guys don't watch a lot of Bears games or Texans games, I mean, the way that you kind of brought along Mac Jones, I mean, we haven't really seen that Bears offense even attempt a lot of passes. I think they were only coming into that game. I think they had attempted like 20 passes in 2 games. It was absurdly low. But not to dwell on the hangnail too long.
Yeah,
What
I was about to say, let's get back to the lineup. So like,
yeah.
the Pierce play was good. We get that. The defense, like, I get the defensive play, but it wouldn't have been on my list because of the low passing totals.
Mm-hmm.
So like, next up we have the other mini correlation they have. One of the stacks I actually really liked this week myself. He has Lockett and Cordero Patterson. So you get PMR, which is player minutes remaining, which is great to have in a lineup. That way you're not drawing dead during the afternoon games.
Mm-hmm.
Your lineup still has a chance to shoot up. You still have a chance to come back. You have the ability to, if for some reason, depending on the tournament you're in and what you're trying to do, you can late swap. But those are very situational things. So, like right there, you got your skinny stack bring back. You got a running back defense correlation. You got a mini stack from a good afternoon game with Lockett and Cordero Patterson. Then with the rest of the lineup, I like you want a piece of the other big games. So Arizona, Rams, there's another afternoon game. What piece can you get of that? Higbee's a solid piece to fill your tight end slot.
Mm-hmm.
I think for close to the same money, you actually could have had Goddard. So I think this guy may have even had a Goddard double stack with Hurts, but he decided he wanted a piece of the Higbee. He wanted a piece of that Rams-Arizona game, so he got Higbee. And then a good contrarian play, if you're not going to take a piece of that KC Indy game with the Mahomes stack or with Jonathan Taylor, why not just play CEH? So, like, this lineup is, like, just a random lineup.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really good, highly correlated, skinny stack with a mini stack with a running back to defense and 2 pieces from high total games.
I would agree.
Well, 2 pieces from high total teams.
I would agree.
Because off of that, this is a really good constructed lineup. And you're getting different in places. You're not eating. You have like Samuel was a very chalky play because he was probably the best bring back to a Hurts. Hurts was a solidly chalky, but he has a couple of 5% guys. This is a very solid lineup that's not highly owned, gets you different enough. Like if Lockett would have caught a touchdown, this is pants on the ground kind of level.
Right. Well, you see how it gets condensed up here in the winning. I mean, 10 points would have shot you way up. 10 points when you get up this high could be the difference between 400 place and 190 or even higher on some weeks.
Yeah, you jump up half the spots between you and first just on 10 points. Then like let's say you get that Lockett touchdown and you get another like 7 or 8 points. And then also you end up playing, instead of correlating the defense, you play like the Panthers defense against Jameis, who you know is going to throw the ball, which was one of the high-end plays. They ended up getting 16. So like realistically, without spending any money, making just a pivot to defense and Lockett catching that touchdown, you getting lucky on that, could have easily had 25 more points in this lineup.
Yeah, and I think this is just a good way to talk about lineups. I like this because he basically said everyone's going to play, the Patrick Mahomes over. They're going to play the +2 touchdowns, and everyone's going to think that Patrick Mahomes will do it through the air. I'm just going to go contrarian. I'll go opposite. Similar how it might have worked out depending on what you chose, but if you stacked that Vikings Lions game and you went with Kirk over Cooks or Cooks over Kirk, however, you just got to tell yourself the story and then build that lineup for your story, but it's just got to make sense. And then you just got to hope people read it. I think the Pierce play was smart because it's kind of that same mindset where it's like everyone wants to play David Montgomery. Why not just save $400 play a better defense, perhaps. Maybe he was looking at a cheaper defense like the Lions. He's going to save that 400 by playing a younger Pierce that we don't know, taking on a bit of uncertainty, but it's the same game, kind of the same narrative, kind of the same team, very muddling team, very low pace game. And I mean, the ownership might have been the same. And who knows, the David Montgomery thing was injury related, but that's also why I brought that up, just to speak to the luck and the variance. Like this lineup got lucky in some ways too. You know, it got unlucky because, like you mentioned, with the Tyler Lockett not getting the touchdown. But
Exactly.
you know,
But
then
it was the thought process behind this lineup is solid. I have
right.
like looking at it right now, like deconstructing it like we did. That's how I build a turn. That's what I want in a tournament lineup. I'm trying to get to correlate things so that it's if you're putting a correlation in there, you can try to think about it as if both things are one. So like the Hurts, Brown, Samuel, those three players, you count that as like one play.
Yep.
Then the Lockett Patterson, those two players, that's one play. Then saying, well, I'm going to do my defense and my running back. Like just saying that no matter what it is. Maybe he would have done the Kansas City defense and done a different running back from Pierce or something. Could have happened. But let's just say he wants to do that. Like you make those three conscious decisions that you're going to do a stack, you're going to do a mini, and you're going to correlate your defense with your running back or whatever. Right there, you've turned a 9-person lineup down to like 4 decisions. What's your stack? What's the other main game you like that you're going to get a mini stack from? What defense are you going to correlate with one of your running backs? You have like one spot to fill with whatever money you have left. Pick your guy. Like,
and I'll be honest, I like the lineup we just reviewed more than I like the lineup that won the whole thing in the same tournament. And not to say that this guy doesn't deserve it or I'm trying to take away his victory. It's just like I like the construction of the one we just reviewed over this one, but that's kind of the lottery draw. Like DeAndre Swift got hurt in that game, already came in limited, so he was already kind of on a snap count, got hurt.
And then Jamal Williams just goes off, which
right.
So you get a 1% owned Jamal Williams. That's great. Let's see. What's the other part of the winning lineup? So you get a Lamar Jackson to Mark Andrews. So another skinny stack. I do not see any bring back, even though New England had a massive play from Devontae Parker or solid play from the running back Stevenson that could have been a bring back. Like you could have easily just had Stevenson's 20 points instead of Williams 24. And then you have your stack bring back. Then it's at least a single stack bring back. But so he decided not to bring back. He just wanted whatever Lamar Jackson to Mark Andrews is. Give me all those points from Baltimore. Like, okay, not exactly how I like to play, but no, but like I'm not against, like, he did what he wanted. He only wanted to get that. He didn't want another receiver, and he didn't want a piece of New England. Like, I can kind of understand thinking, well, New England's not that good. They won't do much. But someone has to do something. Usually someone has to do something on the other side of a game. Yeah. There's occasions where a team only scores 3 points and no one does anything, but
I'm okay.
Those are kind of rare in the NFL, and when they're not rare, you sort of know when they're going to happen.
Well, that's the thing is, I'm okay doing that, but I wouldn't do it with the Ravens team. For example, I know Gov's a Panthers fan, so I'll use this example. If you thought, let's just say you thought the Panthers were going to just boat race the Saints, right? Just like they were going to put up 35 points, their defense was going to play great. You could say, I'm going to play Baker and McCaffrey because Baker's so cheap. McCaffrey's so expensive, the combination won't be owned together. And then I'm going to pair it with the defense and then watch those two guys just get all the touchdowns. Like, it's
that's a crazy situation, but like, okay.
But I still like that better than this because for Andrews to get there, Lamar has to get there as a passer and probably a runner to make it different enough because Mark Andrews only came at 2% on, which is kind of crazy, but I think that was because Travis Kelce wasn't on the main slate last week, and like people just wanted the safety, and so having those two big guys, but like I don't know why Andrews keeps going under-owned, but I think people are going to wake up real soon to that guy's consistency.
Yeah,
he is just.
Well, to be fair, like in this tournament, like he's 2.5% owned. So is Lamar Jackson. So I'm betting everyone who played Mark Andrews in this tournament just played him as a Lamar Jackson stack.
Right. And I think Travis Kelce has more like 100-yard games and like has that bigger upside, probably due to also Mahomes just having a stronger arm. But I think Andrews is 100% more the consistent guy just based on the targets. But so it's a salt and pepper to taste issue on that one. But the thing I don't like about this lineup, it just makes no sense, is why pay 6,100 for like the medium guy with no bring back? Like that's the thing I don't like. If it was a cheap guy like Romeo Doubs, like a Matt Collins, like a Grayson even from the Colts that everyone thought was gonna do good. Like if it was just a cheap one off, it'd be one thing. But he paid like that weird like middle ground, but didn't correlate it at all. I just don't understand that one.
Yeah, like I'm looking through the rest of the lineup, and it's like, okay, I can understand the skinny stack, and like I can kind of understand where he would come on the bring back, not liking New England, but there were still good plays. Then he does have another mini stack in there, so okay, we're on a good path there. A game I was targeting that was a good total game. He has a Philly Washington mini, Devonta Smith, so he didn't go with the chalkier AJ Brown, but he did go with the chalky Curtis Samuel on the other side. That's perfectly fine. So like right there, it's almost redemption with that mini stack. It's like, okay, he didn't do the main stack in a optimal way, but it worked for him. Like the pieces he got did work. Then he did do what was a very, I think it was actually the best combo for a mini stack from that Philly Washington game. Gibson might have had more points than Samuel, so you probably could have done just a Devonta Antonio Gibson mini, but Curtis Samuel was fine. I know Dotson did not get there, so that's perfect. But then, like you said, like that New Orleans Carolina game wasn't something to target. Like this guy has to have some sort of industry knowledge or watch shows, because Chris Olave was a guy being talked about last week because of his heavy air yards and how he's getting thrown to. It's just going over his head because Jameis is overthrowing him. So if this guy is in the industry, I can see how he could become a one-off in a lineup, even though you're not really targeting that game. Well, maybe he catches some of these air yards and they are here, which basically is what happened. He got 9 balls for 147 yards. Yes, he caught the air yards this week that he had been getting the first 2. So I can understand that one-off. But like you said, that's $4,500. That's more of a cheaper one-off. I'm more understanding the cheaper one-off.
Yeah.
Leonard Fournette, one-off running back. That was a chalky running back in a good position against Green Bay. He just hasn't done anything yet this season. That's like Tampa just doesn't look like they're doing that much this season. We talked about Jamal Williams. Like I could see that. I thought that was a solid, like with Swift hurt, that's a solid cheap running back play to fill your other running back slot. So I can understand that even without a correlation, although I probably at that point would want the Lions defense because you know Kirk Cousins is going to throw. If the Lions get up, they can put him in more of a passing game script. Yeah. So like that would have been an easy correlation for me, would have go to Lions defense. Then you probably have more money because they play well. They weren't that much cheaper than the Jags, actually.
They were not, and the Jags have been more consistent. I will say about Williams, though, statistically, I believe he was the number 1 running back coming into the league with goal line touches. Like he has basically seen all the goal line touches for the Lions. So I think this was just a ballsy, like, I don't want to play Montgomery. If the Lions actually are competitive in this game, They're going to be in the red zone a lot, and they've already shown a propensity to hand it to Williams. I will say he got lucky, just like all good lineups have to have a little bit of luck with the Swift injury, but he did get lucky in that regard. But it was good leverage off of, other chalky guys that we talked about. But then he realized, like, okay, if I'm going to play Williams and let my, and let that be the big contrarian take, I can eat the chalk on Leonard Fournette in the late game.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You see, he has two pieces of chalk in that he's eating the Leonard Fournette chalk and he's eating the Curtis Samuel chalk from the other game. But like he's taking low owned 5% or less shots on everyone. He got basically one of the few people in the tournament running a Lamar stack.
Right.
So like he was different enough from the field with a lot of things. And I guess that was his thing. Like he's trying to build a contrarian lineup that's still good. So it's like, yeah, Olave's contrarian, but still solid if he realizes his stuff. He had to get lucky. Devontae is the more contrarian part of that mini stack. Jamal is a contrarian cheap running back. And I guess, like, it looks to me, honestly, like he probably built the lineup like that. And then had a defense and a wide receiver. And his favorite wide receiver under like 6,200 was probably Higgins. So he's like, let me do Higgins and a 2,300 defense.
And that's where you got.
If he would have gone down to any other receiver, he might have gotten to a better defense. That's probably what would have happened.
Right. Hey, you could take your grandma to a fine dining restaurant, but if on Friday night she wants that like diner experience, and that's what like brings her happiness, like sometimes you just gotta take her to the diner. You know what I'm saying? So like at some point you can throw all the analytics, you can throw all the projections at me, but if I have a feeling about something or a real strong urge to do it, sometimes you gotta write it out. And like I like that other lineup better, but it only won $5. It's won 1,000. Like this wasn't a bad lineup either. It's just I wanted to show the difference.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing to do. Like that shows like we can sort of I can understand the process of both of these lineups after looking at them. Yeah. I can see them and I understand how they got built. I understand the rules around it. Like this guy, I can see how this guy could have an optimizer spit this out.
Yeah.
No problem. Like I think I can tell the rules he probably had. He probably made a couple of groups. He definitely set an ownership cap, but he didn't like disallow chalky players. He just set the ownership cap. It's like, if I get one or two pieces of chalk with a bunch of low-owned guys, perfect.
So I want you guys to contribute. I want you guys to like and subscribe, but we're not there yet. So what I did was I reached out to some bigger people who have gotten there. I was able to listen to their takes, and I think I found some unique takes out there that maybe are going underutilized as we review week 3 here. Going into week 4, we can learn some lessons. So as we get into our next segment here, I want to play these 2 takes. I'll play one and then get your reaction to it, because I know you haven't heard these, and hopefully it comes through. So let me know if you can't hear it or if I need to adjust the volume. But I'm going to play this first one for you and then get your take.
The thing that gets me about the Dan Campbell stuff today, I've already seen some people calling him out, and you it's one thing if you go 0 for 6 on 4th downs, right? When you go 4 for 6, you have to be willing to take the good with the bad, or vice versa, right? You can't just call him out and be like, oh, he should have kicked that field goal at the end of the game, or they should have punted, without also acknowledging that he made 4 very good decisions earlier in the game that increased their win expectancy. And that's what drives me crazy about the whole argument, right? It just always comes down to the last situation. And they should have done this, they should have done that. And it's like, no. I mean, then you have to exclude the decisions that he made earlier in the game where they went 4 for 4 on 4th downs. And that's what drives me up the wall with this stuff. So,
yeah, be consistent. If you don't think that the team should be going for it on 4th down, great. I don't agree with you, but so be it. Like, and be consistent throughout. And here's the other thing with the Lions, which I think might be different, and their defense is not good. they're not making many stops. They're struggling. So I really think they're a team that truly has to, just philosophically, has to maximize every scoring opportunity that they have. Settling for threes is not going to be good for them when the other team's marching down and averaging 4 points a drive, whatever the number is. But that kind of thing.
I agree with you.
So let me give the courtesy credit really quickly. That was forward progress with Rob Pizzola and his team as he reviewed it. He gave me the permission on Twitter, so thanks, Rob, for that. I really respect him. He's a better. He's not even a DFS player. The reason I bring that up, Gov, and I want to get your reaction to it, is I think that's how we should think about like the Leonard Fournette decision. Like if he scores a touchdown, again, I keep mentioning it, but it's true. It's like we can't have this hindsight 2020. Oh, I should have played Mac Holland over Romeo Dobbs. I mean, sure, it would have been more points. A mathematician could tell you after the fact that it's the case. Did the process make sense? Was it worth the risk? And then, like we saw with the real life example, it's not so much did Dan Campbell get it right or wrong. It's did it make sense for that scenario? They're trying to win a division game for the first time I think since 1990. They would have had the lead. So like you got to factor it all in. What was your kind of DFS take from that? Because I thought that was an interesting like crossover.
Well, I mean, on his take personally, like right off the bat, I agree with it. Like,
yeah,
like you can't do like you need to go for it on fourth down. You can't just say a team can't go for it, and you can't just disregard when they go for it early, and then if they miss going for it late, it's like
right.
Yeah, the hindsight on that, it's like, oh yeah, well, no, they go for it. They clearly go for it. They had no problem doing it. Why wouldn't you? Like that's just when a person starts doing something, they keep doing it. You try to stop doing something that you're doing well. Like
Right.
seriously, like any person out there, think about something you do in your life, or like you do well in your life. You do well at your job or whatever. Now stop doing that while still doing your job. Like that's like it's just not something you do.
Right.
So like I agree with his take on that. And then I like what you said. Like the process of playing Leonard Fournette or someone like that is like if you had the right process, if you were playing it for the right reason, not just because, oh, he's chalky, let me just play Leonard Fournette, like correlate him. Like if you're like I played Leonard Fournette, but I had a lot of him with Romeo Doubs. So like I just like with the one stack, it's like I play Curtis Samuel, but I have him with like Devonta Smith or a different, like not an AJ Brown or just on the other side of Jalen Hurts or something. I have something else in the lineup that helps offset that. Like it makes sense as part of this lineup to have this chalkier guy in there or to play Leonard Fournette or whatever. Just because he doesn't get there and there were better plays at the end of the day doesn't mean it was like a horrible play. Now, if it just keeps happening, then you have to readjust what you have on the guy. But usually if you're following projection systems, those will adjust to it. Maybe not as quick as you want, but if you really feel like after one game a guy's bad, then that's your job to X him out or lower his exposure. It's like, well, I really don't believe in Leonard Fournette, so I'm not going to be 30% of the field like his ownership is. Okay. Only play 5%. Only play 10%. Play none of him. Whatever you want to do. Doesn't make Leonard Fournette a good or a bad play just because he does or doesn't score a bunch of points.
Let me let you look at this lineup because I pulled this up as a perfect example of my last point, and then we'll play the other clip and get a reaction to that one. This is a lineup where he basically played Mac Hollins and Romeo, and he played all the value receivers because he played Greg George. He didn't care about ownership. The only reason he's this high is because of Khalil Herbert. This was a bad play. It worked out because of an injury.
It shot him up to the top of a tournament because of an injury.
Right.
Like I can understand, again, I can look at this lineup and be like, okay, he wanted his Mahomes Kelsey. That's an expensive stack.
Yep.
He also wanted to play a pay-up running back in Christian McCaffrey. Yep. You got to find salary to do that. So to do that, He played every cheap receiver. He played Dortch, he played Dubs, he played Hollins.
Right.
But he still and then he played the Panthers defense to correlate with his Christian McCaffrey. So like already right there, I'm not like he has his skinny stack. He didn't grab a bring back. Okay. But we've seen that. Okay. He correlated his running back with his defense. That's fine. Didn't work out for him because McCaffrey at that price, you really wanted the 30 burger from.
Right.
But like, so at that point, he's left with, like, let's say you do all that first. He's left with a flex and a running back, and he's got right about 5,500 apiece. So you probably could have done a Miles Sanders and then Curtis Samuel. Like that would have been a mini instead of Herbert and Kirk right there that you could have done, but that also would have been chalky. That probably would have been 2 12%ers, or I think Samuel was at like 17%. So like he did want to get different. Now, I actually didn't like I didn't hate the Herbert play. Like Montgomery was going to be very chalky. He was in a good spot.
Right.
We know Herbert gets a good percentage. Like we know that it's not like a 60-40 split.
It's not.
But Herbert does get carries. If they were going to run the ball 25 plus times, Herbert was going to probably get 10 carries, whereas Montgomery was going to get the other 15 plus. Now, Herbert having a 30-point day only happens because of the Montgomery injury. Montgomery doesn't get injured. Herbert's not going for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he gets half of what he gets. Yeah. And that all, like the 70 yards and a touchdown would have gone to Montgomery at least. They would have split that running really well, most likely. So like his complete smash day, that less than 1% Herbert play got him to the top, or got him near the top. Like that was the play that got him near the top. But that was a very lucky play.
Well, this just correlates so well, I got to mention it. One of our greatest sponsors of the Record Eagle, I've been mentioning it the last couple of weeks, they invited us to play in a celebrity fantasy league. I have Herbert in that league. I drafted Herbert. I believe in Herbert long term. Gov is right. He was already eating into David Montgomery's workload. That is all true. But he had that Tariq Cohen role. He would have caught like a Naheem Hines kind of role. But with the injury, he gets 12 targets, similar to Breece Hall. You know, he gets vaulted up into that Breece Hall like I'm the number one running back. It's not to say it's a bad play or a good play. It's just to speak to the variance of it. He was only 3%, or only 3 people had him in this entire contest. But you can't tell me that Herbert was a better play in a vacuum than a guy like Pierce, because Pierce had shown the propensity to be an 18-touch guy. We had never seen that from Herbert. Or a guy like Matt Collins, who had gotten the targets with the injury, or there was a lot of camp buzz. There was lightning bug kind of droppings. If you have listened to the beat reporters coming into the week, you listen to some of the touts. Same with Romeo Dubs. I have no problem with that. Christian Watson's rolled out. You knew the volume was there.
Yeah, no. He played the 3 top pay down receivers. Those were the guys. Matt Collins was getting the volume with no Renfro. Dubs was going to get the volume with no Christian Watson and maybe Cobb limited. And Dortch has been lighting it up for Arizona with no Rondale. So he played the 3 chalkiest, the 3 best play wide receivers below 4,500 to help save salary. And he did that to play Mahomes, McCaffrey, and Kelsey. He also paid down. He also then paid down at running back. But there were running backs like Stevenson or in the other lineups with Jamal Williams that people would have paid for that were right in that range. He decided to take the shot on, since Montgomery is in such a good spot. Let me get the leverage off of him and take Herbert. And maybe Herbert vultures a touchdown. Because really at Herbert's price, if he gets 20, you're happy. Yeah. But he gets 34. And so you're smashing.
I know people don't like it when you bring up your fantasy team. I just had to mention that I am a Herbert fan. I can even prove it to you. I drafted him. I know his role is going to expand. His expansion happened sooner than later because of injury, and that is allowed to happen. It could happen with Devontae Adams. It could happen with Travis Kelce next week. It could happen with any of these guys, and it's not on him. Good on him to have the knowledge or the belief that Herbert would be the next guy up. Like, you got to be ready. And just like players got to be ready to perform, he caught 12 catches, and that's his main role. So it got extended. He was ready, and this guy was ready to take a dart throw, and that's mainly my point. And sometimes the fun of DraftKings is being able to be like, I'm going to go play darts with my friends. I'm going to the bar to play darts with my friends. The consequence of that is I might be tired Monday morning, but it's worth the fun. So sometimes plays are just going to be worth it because they're fun. This was a fun play. It worked out. Most of the time, I got it, only owned by three people in a whole entire contest of thousands of people isn't going to work out. But this is one of the times where the fun was worth the risk. And that's okay too. Like, I want to point that out. So let me get onto this last clip. I know this is one of our favorite touts, guys. This is Pete Overzet. I talked to him in his Deposit Kingdom Discord channel. He told me I could use this clip from his recap show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it. You know who he is. I just want your initial take on this. You might have heard it already. This is a good one.
This Monday, Pete, do you think it's time to rethink some of our stuff as it relates to percentage owned? The field is so much better at identifying the good plays. Oh, this is actually a good question. I thought you were going to say, Pete, is it time to reevaluate how galaxy braid your lineups are? So I've been thinking about this, Davis, too, because even when we flipped over the cards on the Chiefs stuff, we ran one of those in one of our tilt space lineups. And it was like Mahomes ended up being the same percentage owned as Jalen Hurts. Juju comes in at 15% when everyone had it projected for 5 or 6. And I think we do now in these higher stakes, mid stakes, single entry 3-max, we have to reevaluate how we think about ownership, because the same fucking shit plays out where all of us look at the same numbers anchored to the early ownership projections, and we're like, wow, no one's playing the Chiefs. And then literally everyone says, no one's playing the Chiefs, no one's playing the Chiefs. And then we all fucking play the Chiefs. So I don't know what the answer to that is. I mean, I guess, I heard Blender talk about how he's consuming all of this content, and it's probably a good way to catch this post-Steam steam more than just looking at ownership percentages. I do think it's tough. And you see the mini steam within those specific contests. Like in the ETR one, Traylon Burks, I think, was like 15% owned because Leone was hyping him up. They had him as a good point per dollar projection play. I just feel like everyone who's playing in these contests are all consuming the same content.
What do you think about that take? Because I thought it was an interesting look at things.
I kind of agree with that, because I was a little surprised too with my Mahomes stacks coming in as high as they were.
Right.
But again, it was another reason why I kind of felt like I really wish I would have played more Jalen Hurts, with considering how much Mahomes I played and how equal their ownership was. And like, I thought I was getting different doing that, but
I think this is that last comment was really smart, because I'm glad this guy played Mac Holland and Romeo, because they're like literally side by side. We can honestly compare them. I think that they were the same play in terms of theory, right? Both, both have good opportunity. One's a rookie, one's established. Like, they have differences, but their opportunity was similar. And like, that's the thing. It's like, you don't have to have everything right. You don't have to know everything about these players. You just want volume. We don't have to know what Christian McCaffrey is going to do. But if you have a feeling he's going to be 2% owned and he has a legacy score of, hey, I'm Christian McCaffrey. I'm a rare card to shout out Rainmakers and a different style way to play DraftKings. But if you're going to take that quick view, I mean, that's a good play. That's a good process. And I do think at this point, we look at projections or we look at these listener leagues or, he mentioned a lot of Touts too, which I like because he mentioned Leone and Blender from Roto Grinders and these type of guys and like how their opinions vary, but then how the audiences and our own galaxy brains kind of get in the way. And I don't think there's a right and wrong way to do it. Some people say don't build a lineup until Thursday, don't consume content. I think you should play this game however you want. Just like you should cook however you want. You should take the inventory and you should put it in your cupboards, your house, your stove, your refrigerator, those type of things. But at the end of the day, you then also have to pay the electricity bill. You have to take ownership of those responsibilities. Just like this guy probably is going out and buying a Khalil Herbert jersey, or he'll always remember Khalil Herbert's rookie year, And unfortunately, it was probably one of David Montgomery's worst days. It becomes this guy's best day. That doesn't mean one is right or wrong. It's just the way it is. Gov, is there any other takeaways you want to take away from the week?
Oh, let's see. I do think that now that we're starting to get into week 4,
okay,
just like I said earlier in the show, it might be the time to start looking when to zig and zag more. Because the first few weeks, you're trying to get a feel for what's going on with teams, what's new in the season. Week 4 is when we start to finally have enough info to really see what's happening. Teams will have had to adjust to certain situations so we can finally see those adjustments. Like I said, this week we saw guys get touched. Games still did what we thought, but they did it with different guys. So we're going to start to have that info. So be smart. I think like the best advice I would give right now is be smart with your play because it's about to get sharp with everyone else in the field.
Well, it's not just getting sharp either. I want to make that point. It's knowing the sharpness of the object you're using. For example, Jamal Williams is the Lions' goal line back, whether Swift is in or not. He is not in this week. He is 6,100. If you like Leonard Fournette, this is exactly why you should be on Jamal Williams this week. And he's going to get steamed, just like Pete was talking about. We're going to talk about him. And then some people are going to get scared because they'll be like, his ownership is too high. But if he's a good play, he's a good play. There was plenty of options we gave today. Curtis Samuel, Leonard Fournette was out there. Patrick Mahomes didn't blow anyone away today, but
no,
was still
Jalen Hurts with AJ Brown stacks. Like people were able to play chalky plays.
Right.
You don't got to get different everywhere. That's where I like thinking about it as play your stack, play your mini,
right,
correlate something else, then get different with your one-off.
Right.
Do that.
If
you're different enough elsewhere, play the best one-off you can, even if everyone else is.
Yeah. Well, Jamal Williams is already seeing around 20 targets. DeAndre Swift is already ruled out. Don't overthink this one. Just play the best plays for you. I wouldn't tell you, just like I won't give you any financial advice. This is only entertainment advice. But I would tell you he is the best value on the slate, in my opinion. And so to fade that based on ownership, when Pete just proved it, that we can galaxy brain ownership to the point where we, the guy who won with Khalil Herbert today is in his birthday suit. That birthday suit could easily be indecent exposure if given the wrong context. So if you want to play Jamal Williams, that's fine. Just get a little different. Play Hawkinson and do a full game stack. Or do a one-off and do it in a different way, but just get a little different. We don't need to get crazy. Just like you wouldn't eat all the chalk or try to drink a whole gallon of milk, but you can enjoy one glass of milk with your dinner. So I made enough dinner analogies. I probably should run off and make my own dinner tonight. So thanks for joining us. Again, guys, like and subscribe. Shout out to the Record Eagle. We're going to get that reporter on. He does a local podcast. He wants to do some crossover work. So again, support the local just like we support you. I know I helped a young guy out a couple weeks ago who's just getting into DFS, wants to dip his toes. I made profit this week because of prop bets and because of money totals and things of that nature. I do have that, but I kind of want to get Donnie's instant reaction. So we're almost going to review it on Friday just to keep us under an hour ago. So I just want to get Donnie's reaction, but it's gonna be fun as we continue this journey. So on Mondays and Friday nights, Fridays are like last second reviews. These are our first initial impressions. Do you have anything else for the people?
Don't get discouraged about a bad week. There's still time in the football season.
Right.
Be smart with your money and be smart with your plays. And like I've said before, understand why you want to play and have fun with it.
Right. Do it your way. Fill the gas tank your way.
Yep.
But at least make sure you can get to the next gas station. Don't even if you had a good week this week, don't be like, on your high horse too much. It's horsepower. So make sure you balance power and balance. And with that, if you guys could just again leave a like and subscribe, it costs you nothing. I guess it does cost you something in transparency. It costs you some time. So I am asking for something. I'm asking for just a millisecond of time for the effort we put in. I know we're a small podcast, but that's how things grow. They start small. So again, thanks guys for joining us. Thanks, Go. Have a good night. Everyone stay safe.
Remember, everyone, have a good night. Like, sub, comment down below with anything you want to say. And we'll see you on Friday.
Take care.